Hey guys, this is Chauncey from Good Music to Know. Today, I am truly thrilled to be joined by PINC LOUDS, a band that doesn't just make music, they build entire worlds out of feeling. PINC LOUDS have always had a way of turning the ordinary into something surreal, intimate, and electric. After a few quiet years on the album front, they're back with You Can't Eat the Moon and Be a Werewolf Too. Their new single, Sequins Do the 22, gives us a glimpse of chaos and tenderness that's waiting in this next chapter. It's haunting, beautiful, and unlike anything else out right now, and we're very happy to have them on the show.
Thanks. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. So You Can't Eat the Moon and Be a Werewolf Too is such a vivid and poetic title. It almost reads kind of like a fable or maybe like a slight warning. So maybe you can describe the meaning behind the title.
We started the band 10 years ago this October, and throughout the first, I'd say 8 years of it, as some people know, I performed as a persona of sorts, or an extension of myself. And I think like many actors or people who have connected with a side of themselves that externalizes somewhat differently from who they supposedly are in real life. It can be very liberating to be someone else, in quotes, and it can actually allow you to be yourself. Your inhibitions kind of get dropped, because since you're not yourself, then all of a sudden you can do all these things that you actually want to do and that you actually are, in a sense. So this persona that I created for the band allowed me to do that, and allowed me to become a more vulnerable side of myself, and at the same time also like a crazier side of myself, a more extroverted side of myself. And that was very good for me for many years, for performing, for playing in the subway, for example. When I moved to New York, I started busking in the subway stations and then in parks. And it can be pretty, terrifying in a way. I mean, you're playing in one of the biggest cities of the world to millions of people who don't care. You're just one more person, one more, possible nuisance in there, on their way to work. And, and you have to really lose your ego in a way to do that and keep doing that and not be disheartened and try to only filter in the good or accept the bad and accept the fact that you don't matter, and that's actually okay. There's so many of us here in this world, and why should I be anything special? And the important thing is that I am doing what I want to do. So being this persona helped me do that. And then throughout my life, I did act as a teenager. I've dealt a lot with going to the werewolf thing, with transformation. And in the case of this with PINC LOUDS, a lot of that transformation was to a wilder side of myself, a less constrained, less self-aware. And in the last 2 years, when I decided to stop performing that way, I mean, I still sing with a high voice. Once the listeners hear us, they'll understand. But I still sing with a high voice because I feel like it's more expressive, but I used to also talk with a high voice. I used to, between songs, I talk like this, and I would always I would always stay in character, so to speak, even after a show. I was actually watching the Pee Wee Herman documentary that just came out on HBO, and he was definitely an inspiration, because I love the idea that you could be someone else, and for the world, except for my close friends and family, I was just that. And after a show, I would talk with them completely as that person, and I wouldn't drop it until I got home. And I was doing this for hours, sometimes on the street, because it's not just like, oh, I'm on stage and then I go backstage and I'm like, I can relax. No, it's So I went through kind of a crisis 2 years ago, because I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore for various reasons. One of them being, I had a child, And I don't know, like things change in you. Yeah, I when we started playing a lot more in the park, in Tompkins Square Park in the East Village, in the pandemic in 2020, really that line between artist and audience got a lot more blurry. And we were in the park for hours and we were playing with people, and it was so nice because we could just play, 45-minute set, take a break, talk, walk around, get a beer, come back, play another set, and like so on for how many hours. And one of the great things about that, as opposed to playing on a stage, was that we were we were really like hanging out with all these people. We were meeting all these wonderful people, a lot of the people that stayed in New York, which means, people that don't have a house in the Hamptons or aren't, NYU students, just like in a sense, real New Yorkers and really, wonderful people. A lot of, people who spend their whole day in the park, drinking, people from all, walks of life. And those connections, I wanted them to be more real for me. And I wasn't able to completely, go all the way when I had this, armor of sorts on me. And I would see some of these people on the street when I was not, wearing the wig, wearing the makeup. And and I would be like, oh, well, I have this double identity and I don't have to say hi and I'll just, walk past. And that started to feel less and less like a good thing. I didn't want the persona to just be like, oh, when I turn it on, I can be sociable and extroverted and, and then fabulous or whatever. I want that part of me to also be in my daily life. And I think my daily life person was kind of like shrinking and getting smaller and smaller, and I was just leaving it all up to what I do with PINC LOUDS. So and there's a give and take with that, with deciding to be yourself. And yeah, so You Can't Eat the Moon and Be a Werewolf Too is a little bit like a play on you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I definitely, I might have lost something when I lost that, but I also gained a lot, and I'm definitely a happier person now. So that's yeah, but it's more complex than that. But I'm not going to talk about that for hours. But that's where it comes from, and the werewolf represents in a way like one becomes this more animalistic side of oneself, and and you want it all. I want to. I'm a person that wants I want to be a fireman, and I want to be, a singer, and I want to be a reporter, and I want to be all these things, and I want it all, but I can't. So, it's a little bit about, coming down and just, realizing what you can be and just being yourself. Sometimes that's, the best you can do.
And then in Sequins, Do the 22, there's kind of like this eerie tenderness to that song because there's so much imagery happening. There's images of pigeons, and then there's pills, and there's moonlight, and there's sequins, and then there's teeth. Can you maybe like walk us through the emotional world this song lives in?
I think that the strangest thing about the song, especially when I wrote it, was the fact that I started writing it in 2022, but I'm talking in past tense. I'm saying I stopped taking pills back in 2022. I think, when I wrote it, I was kind of imagining myself in the future. I was kind of like in a good place when I started writing it. And I just can't avoid always kind of like, finding the tragedy in things. Like if I'm happy, it's like, oh my God, I know this is not going to last much longer. I was imagining, myself in a future where I had lost my partner and, my family. So because of the way that I am, I have this kind of tendency towards madness. I'm again, like I want everything. I want to have a beautiful, wholesome family life, and I also want to, live in Tompkins Square Park and drink there all day, and I want to go to parties. I want to fill the world with sequins. So I'm always being pulled by these, two sides of myself. So I was kind of imagining a dark future and trying to convince my partner that, that they should come back and and that I'm okay, that I stopped taking pills. It was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy because I started writing that song in 2022, and then in 2023 I did end up having a mental breakdown and I ended up in the hospital. And but I figured it out and everything is okay now. So the song like starts a little bit with this yearning, this and even musically, right? It starts very, very slow and soft and tender, and then just loses control. Yeah, just spirals out of control. And yeah, so those are kind of like the two sides of me that are there in that song.
Yeah, you actually already answered the next question I had for you.
Oh no.
I had written, I said, the way you blur the lines between character and real emotion is so unique. And so I was going to ask, do you ever like find a character revealing something about you that you didn't expect? But I think that's kind of probably the revelation that you had not so long ago. So for this next album, it's completely just yourself, correct? Like there'll be no character or.
I mean, that's always been kind of blurry, right? And I think it's blurry for most people, singer-songwriters. It's I mean, it is definitely a lot more raw and exposed. Yeah, it's definitely a lot more me. But even like when I was writing that song, I was thinking of a future that hadn't happened, so in a way that was a character of sorts, because it wasn't real. I wasn't actually going through that at the moment, so in a way you could say that was acting as well. There's always like also, as I think most artists, like we also tend to like dramatize things a little bit more, because then that helps you feel it more also, when you're singing it, when you're performing it, and you can go to that place that you were in that moment. But if you're kind of like, well, things aren't great, but they could also be worse, if you're kind of like half-assing it in that sense, it's a little bit better to be, a little bit more extreme. And this is definitely not the most extreme song on the album in that sense. They're like, the second single is that one's really tough, and we don't play it that much because it's gonna be the second and fourth singles on the album. We reserve them for for certain shows because I can't perform them without completely going a little bit crazy, and then not necessarily screaming, but they're just like very emotionally intense for me. So yeah, this album definitely is a lot more me, and that's been refreshing.
Yeah. And then was there a song on the album that maybe almost didn't make it? Maybe it felt a bit off, or maybe you thought it was too strange, but then it ended up being essential, or you guys were like, no, this needs to be a part of the album?
Not really. I'm pretty controlling, and everything is pretty deliberate. I don't think there was anything on the album that I doubted. Sometimes I'll doubt what the audience response will be to certain songs, but I don't doubt myself anymore. I think I used to more. Something that really inspired me once I got out of the hospital was listening to, I've always been a Daniel Johnston fan, but listening to a lot more Daniel Johnston, and I learned some of his songs just for kicks. And when you play somebody's songs, you get to like really feel them more, analyze the lyrics more. And what I came out of with that experience was like, it doesn't matter, it as long as it's real, as long as you're being truthful, I don't care. Like, maybe it's not gonna, who knows, maybe it's not gonna be the best song in the world. Maybe, maybe people won't like, how raw it is. But like with him, it's like, I let everything pass. There's songs of Daniel Johnston that I don't think are that great, but I know that he just had to do them, and he just had to put them out, and that's that. And that was definitely very liberating to me. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna really talk about what I'm going through right now, and I don't care. I don't care if it works, if it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, I'll look for a job at a supermarket, which I did, and I didn't get it twice. But luckily people did respond really well. A lot of these songs have been, tested, so to speak, with audiences. So we, because we play so much, yeah, I'd say 80% of these songs, at least the people here in New York, have heard maybe a different version, maybe not the version that's on the album, but yeah, so we did luckily have a good response to these songs.
Yeah, that's good. And then, so like when you're in the thick of it, like creatively and you're creating tracks, how do you know when a song is finished? Like, because I know sometimes I know some artists are like, oh, like
never,
it's never finished.
It's never finished. But that would be more with arrangements. Like I'd say with arrangements, it's never finished. With the song, like, the basic song structure and the lyrics, usually I'll do it'll be some version of lyrics and music at the same time, but really it's more music first, and then I accommodate lyrics into that. Just because I feel like that's the first thing that you receive, you know. I mean, unless you're like really like listening to the song for the first time and like reading the lyrics, like the first thing that will catch you will be the music. And so usually since the music comes kind of first, the lyrics, once the lyrics are done, and that usually is when I feel that they are real, that they're completely honest, that I wasn't like just filling in the melody with words that sound okay or sound cool. I've had songs like, there was a time when we were like playing so much outside that I'd have half finished songs that we'd play, and then because we'd start playing them, I would never get to really finish the lyrics. I was kind of like just making up stuff as I went along live. And a lot of times like they never got to feel completely genuine. So I just dropped them. And maybe they were like perfectly good songs musically. And, people were like, oh, what happened with that song? Why don't you play it anymore? And it's like, yeah, because I never got to completely feel it. And if I don't feel it, then no, I'm definitely not going to record it. And some of those songs, like I'm now working on still, like, finishing the lyrics until I feel that it really is real.
Yeah, yeah. And if someone listens to Sequins, what's the one emotion or vision you would want to kind of be tattooed on their brain after it ends?
That's complicated because like we said before, it is kind of there's a dual side to it. I mean, I guess something that kind of encapsulates it. I mean, there's a lyric that says, "A puzzle piece, an alligator, I only feel complete in crowded elevators." So I think it is about, trying to find that connection. And sometimes we do it all wrong, like getting inside a crowded elevator to feel some kind of connection is not necessarily a healthy way to do it. But it is about like that kind of like failed attempt, and or sometimes, like I guess the right way is the beginning of the song where you're trying to, get back with that person. Sometimes the realest connections we have are not with a crowd of people. They're you can have so much more from one person than you can have from 20. So yeah, it is about just seeking happiness, seeking connection, and sometimes doing it the wrong way. Yeah, sometimes we just want to like put glitter on everything to make it shiny and make it nice, and we think that then we have actually like found what we were looking for, but then the sequins fall off. So
yeah, just a facade.
Just a facade. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there a song on the album that you're the most proud of, or that's your favorite track?
Again, because I'm so controlling. I mean, I don't think I put anything on there. I mean, that I definitely that I don't like, but I mean, I could tell you like there's one song which I think is our third single coming out in July that is probably like the most like musically, relatable sign. I think the one that people might like the most, at least on the surface, that one's called "This Hate Hurts." And I'm proud of it because I think it does a really interesting thing musically. It's very powerful. It uses a lot of synths and all these like different synths kind of like interweaved in between each other, but in a way that I'm not used to hearing mostly music. But it's also very marimba driven. I had a time when I was like in a little room and I had like my little wooden xylophone, which is kind of like a marimba. I don't have a real giant marimba, but and I was just like playing with those combinations of sound. It's a little bit, I would say, like influenced by the band Suicide from New York in the 70s. It's got a little bit of that square, very simple like analog synths kind of thing, but then like the marimba also takes it in a little bit more into a different groove. And I like just the juxtaposition of like a very raw instrument, made of wood with the electronics. Yeah, and it's it's very danceable and it's very cool. And then at the same time, the lyrics, those are kind of about a werewolf of sorts. Like I was just imagining being a werewolf in this city where everybody seems to be more and more robotic, and just kind of like the tragedy of being a werewolf, trying to bite other people in order to like bring them to my side and get their animal side out of them, and so that we can all kind of like be a little bit more animal together. And And then the tragedy of like realizing that you're just surrounded by robots. So every time that you bite into someone, they, you know, they don't respond because they're robots. So it's kind of like biting into cables and springs. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely proud of that one. But at the same time, there's two other singles that I feel like are probably like the most vulnerable and raw and intense songs that we've ever done. And I'm really proud of how those came out. Yeah.
That sounds like it could be an episode on like Dark Mirror. What's it called? Black Mirror?
Black Mirror. Yeah. Yeah. I always say that too. Yeah.
It sounds like it could be an episode of that. That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think those are the main questions that I have for you. But with that being said, are there any final words that you would like to leave the listeners and your fans with?
Well, I mean that the single is coming, and the single and video are coming out this Friday for Sequins, parentheses, do the 22. And yeah, the album's coming out August 16th. We're really excited. We're working with a label for the first time. So for the first time, we're gonna have vinyls and as well as CDs and cassettes. Yes. Yeah. So that's really exciting for me because, you know, and it's been exciting and daunting because actually having like a physical thing is like, oh my God, everything has to be perfect. But yeah, we recorded 4 of the songs with Gordon Raphael, who produced the first 2 Strokes albums. And he also mixed and produced the rest of the songs. So, you know, and that was a really great experience to have. And I think he did a great job. So yeah, so August 15th is the release. August 16th is the album release for people who are in New York at a place called Poisson Rouge in the West Village. And that's going to be a great show with all kinds of wonderful giant puppets and visuals and lights. And we're really excited about that.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the album. I'm super excited. I'm a little bit sad to wait a few more months, but I'm so excited.
Yeah, I know. But you know, we're going to be putting out, you know, single, then another single in June, another single in July.
You're giving us little breadcrumbs till we get there.
That's how they do it. If it was up to me, it would already be out. But that's how, you know, when you're with a label, apparently that's how things go. I'm learning about that now.
I'll do it in Hollywood. No big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.